Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talking Timepieces, where we talk about watch collecting and horology. I've basically given up on half of my tech stuff. I'm going to have to hire somebody, I guess, because I'm just going to use the microphone in the camera. I can't seem to get my Rode studio mic. It used to work, but whatever. Wristwatch check. I am wearing my two-tone blue oyster quartz because I think it's a really cool watch. And so it's Sunday. Let me at least dress up with my watch, if not with the rest of me. Hey, how's everything going, everybody? It's always nice to have friends because the thing is about a community like watch collecting is if we all lived in a vacuum, we do not need things. We need people. And things are what we use to interact with people. Well, I'm very fond of saying um, if you took 100 cell phones and stuck them in the middle of a field, and you came back a month later, you'd have a bunch of soggy boxes. Well, they're wrapped in plastic. It probably wouldn't be soggy, but you'd just have a bunch of boxes stacked in the middle of a field. Whereas you could take 100 people, stick them in the middle of a field, and come back an hour later and there's a marketplace. You got a stick of gum, I got a cigarette, you need a lift home, I'll pay. Humans make a market. Humans make a market. Things are just what we use to interface with people. If we didn't have people that we didn't want to deal with in that sense, we wouldn't need anything. I mean, like if you think about like we're getting into the Christmas season, which has its grounds in the pagan and Roman Saturnalia, which rotates around the equinox or the solstice, six to one, half dozen of the other. The solstice and December 23rd, if I'm not mistaken, is the shortest day of the year. And all of these festivals are because ancient man is like, oh, the sun is disappearing. Ah, it's coming back now. Ah, and they throw a big party because the sun is actually coming back. Because it might not come back. They didn't know. Actually, in one sense, it is. When you think about it, like, holy shit. Pardon my Dutch. I shouldn't say the Dutch is. That is being culturally arrogant. I just cursed. But oh, by the way, if I am a little bit more fluid of speech, it's because I was at the Christmas market in my hometown of Wiesbaden, which is a comically nice European city. And I did partake a significant amount of the glühwein that was available there. Hey, Nanad, how's it going? HRM, yes, elusive man. Long time no see. HR, sorry, elusive man. How's it going? What's on the wrist today? I was just saying, ooh, I really like this watch. I do because I have a lot of pieces in my collection, as you know. But there's just something lovely and quaint because the interesting thing about this watch is that the Rolex Oyster Quartz is probably closest in kinship to the Seiko Spring Drive because I put the display back on it for a specific reason. You could actually see, if you look at the center of the movement, you can see like you could see the escapement ticking back and forth. So this is not a straight up and down quartz movement. It is an electromechanical movement using a quartz regulated temperature compensated motor to drive an 11 joule to drive an 11 joule escapement. So that second hand doing the one tick is not because it's a quartz stepper motor doing it. It's because there's a motor driving a 1 hertz movement that Rolex is like, well, because this is the only quartz watch Rolex ever made. They made a Texan, which was a prototype, and Gerald Genta made the case for the Texan, and this case is based on the Texan. So that's why when you hear people talk about the oyster quartz and the snotty purists go, well, it's not a Gerald Genta design. It's based on a Gerald Genta design that Gerald Genta made for Rolex for their prototype, the Texan. So yes, it's not a Gerald Genta design, but Rolex did pay Gerald Genta for a design, and this is based upon that design, which is close enough for me because anybody with eyes in their head can see that anyone with eyes in their head can see that this is as integrated bracelet sport watch as you can get. And if you can tell me one that is more integrated bracelet sports watch than a blue face two-tone oyster quartz with an 11 joule Swiss escapement driven by a quartz motor, I'll buy you a beer. Oh, and by the way, elusive man, I don't know if you know, I just moved into my new apartment and everything's moved in, and I got my new background going. Um, the knight is back in his station, and I got that's a Mercedes typewriter, by the way, from Turingen, old school, old timey school. But you know me, tech guy, I love the oldie stuff because I mean, I literally live at the cutting edge of technology. So in my hobbies, I look backwards. I'm an ancient civilization guy. I love interesting electromechanical movements. My joke is in the daytime, I'm digital, and at night, I am analog. Like, for example, I don't know how many of you have known, because if you've been watching the channel, you would know. I sold my air cane to a friend of mine who I had sold this to previously. So he goes, well, how about if I give it back and some money? And I'm like, you know what? I need me, I need me a good bar banging watch. And the beautiful thing about the PRX chronograph is the PRX chronograph's got a value 7753 in it. No plastic parts in this watch. And I just recently picked up the latest series Seagull reverse panda, or no, it's panda. I always forget what color the panda's eyes are and the face are. But panda, it's upside down. So I just picked this up. I'm going to do a review on it because I mean, when you think about how many good Panda chronos are out there, there's the Breitling, there's the Hamilton. There are a lot of good Panda chronos, Bicompax chronos, Baltic. But I mean, how many, how many are column wheel hand wound chronographs? See, that's the thing about the Seagull watches. The thing about the Seagull watches is they're almost like a fossil they're like a petrified piece of wood because this design was frozen the moment Seagull sold. I mean, the moment Venus, because the design is from an old Venus hand wound chrono column wheel movement. They offered it to the Russians. Russian turned them down. But the Vostok is a phenomenal watch. And if you wanted a daily wear that doesn't cost anything, get yourself a Vostok Scuba Dude. And that is a watch that was designed by someone who knew it wouldn't be built well and wouldn't be used well, which is why they have the floppy crown on the Vostoks, because if you don't screw it back after adjusting and then you bang it, it's not going to damage the movement because it's not connected to the movement. Very well designed. And the water tightness. It's a compressor design, and it's a brute force compressor design. The gasket's like 3 millimeters wide. Just beautiful design. But I just picked this one up, and I'm gonna give it a little bit of a review. I'll wear it, and then I promised already to sell it. I met a young soldier because I live in Wiesbaden, Germany. I meet a lot of soldiers because the American headquarters are here. In fact, that's why I'm here, because when I got out of the military, I wound up selling to the American military as a traveling salesman to the PX system for over a decade. And I met my first ex-wife here in Wiesbaden, and my daughters live here, which is why I live here. But the American military headquarters moved from Heidelberg to Wiesbaden. I did not choose that, and so my favorite bar, which is owned by a Scotsman, who ironically, well, I shouldn't say ironically, interestingly, also sold to the American military. He was a car sales guy. His name is Gordon. And my favorite bar is owned by this Scotsman who used to sell to the American military, and he used his largesse to buy himself a bar, and he's a great bar, the greatest bar in the Frankfurt area, because Wiesbaden's only about a half hour away from Frankfurt. By If you time yourself with the trains, you can do it in 35 minutes, I think. But if you have a car, yeah, you could easily do it within a half an hour. I once did it in 15 minutes, but that was in my old stupid days, and I had a BMW, and I didn't care about getting any kind of tickets. And also, Germany has changed a lot since the 80s. But we wanted to talk about watches, didn't we? Got to go back up to the. I've been remiss. I got all these comments that I haven't looked at yet. HRM, basic quality control issues bug me a lot. Stuff like misaligned dial elements, cough, cough, Seiko. Well, they're notoriously well. What what inspired this video is a comment that I got on a video about one of, I think, the air rain pieces. Someone commented how the date wheel hadn't aligned, and that bothered them a great deal. And I'm like, well, maybe it stopped because it's a display watch. Maybe people handling it, it ticks a little bit because it's a self-winding, or even if it's not self-winding, the more it's handled, it's going to shake and it's going to tick. And so it could have easily, feasibly been halfway through the date change, but the date wasn't centered in the window. Now, to extend that, if the date isn't centered in the window when it's properly set, then that could really, chap your buns, if you know what I mean. So there are things like, for example, in my case, right? The number one thing that I recognize I don't like, and because I own a Mont Blanc, I got a Nicholas Roussek, but I had a Mont Blanc Geosphere, which I really liked. It's a very pretty watch. I encourage you to look up the Mont Blanc Geosphere. It is a very pretty watch, but I wound up selling it because it's a GMT travel watch. It's a true GMT because, well, any GMT with independently resettable hands is a true GMT, but travel GMT as opposed to office GMT. The Geosphere was not only a true travel GMT, it was also a true world timer because it had dual hemispheres and you could tell the time around the world. But it has no second hand, has no running indicator. It drove me nuts. I mean, what? I'm going to fly somewhere and hope that it's running? Graham, for example, Graham makes really nice English, old school, almost steampunk design chronos. And they're smart enough because they took the Value 7750 and they carved it down to just one subdial, which means no running seconds. But what they did, they were smart enough. They put a window in the back so you could see the balance wheel running. I don't need a second hand, but I do want a running indicator. Now, I do have a dirty watch there. I have a dirty table watch, and the phallus on the angel overlooking the scene that I cannot describe, or I would be demonetized. But the phallus of the angel ticks because it's attached to the palette fork. So not only is it an erotic table watch, it is also horologically significant because the erotic action is directly linked to the escapement mechanism. Us watch people got to take our jollies where we can. A joke. Uh, Johnny, hey Johnny. What burns me up is Omega Swatch, Moon Swatch, Shing Ding with nothing else than a cheap watch. They should have made the metal case with the same quartz movement. If you search, I just saw today someone did a mod where they put the swatch movement in a metal aftermarket Speedmaster esque metal case. No, no, no. You got to look. Just do the search. I just saw it today, and I wish I had it like to tell you exactly what channel, but somebody did it. It's online. Someone and if you think about it, if you buy the $400, what 350, whatever, $400 plastic swatch, go online and buy an aftermarket turned lugs, liar lugs, speedy case. I recognize that Speedmaster is a registered trademark of the Omega Company. So, but buy an aftermarket speedy case and an aftermarket speedy style bracelet. And you're talking about something that has Omega on the dial. You just upgraded the case for under 500 bucks. Look up the video. It really, I mean, when I saw it, I was thinking, but I am an arrogant enough jerk off to admit that I own a Speedy, so I don't have to worry about that. I love this piece. I really do love this piece. I act, and the irony is, I bought one at retail and I sold it because at the time, as I always say, my collection has roles, and I can't have more. I don't have a big enough collection to have like three of the same kind of watch. And at the time, I had a Zen 142, and I liked the 142 more than I liked the Speedy. I've come to like the Speedy more than the 142, but I sold it to a friend of mine, Gordon, actually, the owner of my favorite bar, and I missed it. And so I bought this one. And the irony is, I bought this one used, but the other side of the coin is it has got the awesome patina on the indices, you know? Just checking the time. This isn't on time. This is hand wound. If I ever pulled this out of the box and it was running, I would start thinking about poltergeists and stuff. Because if this is running out of the box, hand wound. Ah, um, I have really started to come to like my Nomos because this is the what I call my classy beater. I'm not wearing it because I'm worried I'm going to dent something, but I wear it instead of wearing, my sub 41 because there are places where I go here and I got to literally worry about my life. Whereas I can wear this and half the jerk offs in that place doesn't even they don't even know what I'm wearing. And this is an awesome watch. It really is an awesome watch. This watch. So, but yeah, Johnny, look into the recasing. Recase that movement. It's an Omega swatch, says Speedmaster on it. Put it into an aftermarket case and keep the plastic case so that way if you ever sell it and some purist goes, It doesn't have the original case." You go, "Yeah, I got the original case and it's never been worn." See, they're in a catch 22. They can't say anything because you didn't use the plastic case that you didn't wear. Nanad, I don't like that some of higher end pieces still. Oops, gotta go back up. Okay. I don't like that some of higher end pieces still don't use on the fly adjustable bracelet, my Breitling Premier, for example. Well, you got pinholes, right? For example, this has got pinholes, right? Micro adjust with pinholes, this Nomos. And the Speedmaster famously has the glide lock system, right? And then you got something like, the PRX, which because it's links, you better hope the half link matches up to your wrist size because it's either going to be just a little bit too big or a little bit too small for you. I've gotten used to it because actually, in my humble opinion, the PRX chronograph is the best one because for all the purists who say, well, the PRX has got the Powermatic 80 in it and it's a plastic parts, this has got a Value 7753. You can tell because it has the hidden pusher for the date, but this is a Value 7753 in it, no plastic parts in it. And so that means you can get a Value 7750 series chrono in a really nice case for under $2,000. You know. Oh, and by the way, this is still for sale. I do like it. I'm not aggressively trying to sell it, but if anybody wants a Value 7750, the most undecorated on the planet, but I don't want a lot for it, and it is the last watch that Universal Genève made before they like fell into the vanity watch cesspool. 200 meters water resistance. Those the funny thing is, see, like for example, when we talk about watch niggles, like I said, mine is running indicators and the like. But some people would go, "Hey, it got these black links, but they're just you know bolted to the front of metal links. It's all optical, right?" So, although carbon fiber and carbon was all really hot, but nobody had it, and so they just like put a little bit of graphite in some plastic, and that's how they made this. But well, genuflecting to Donald Trump, he owned a gold version of this, so that's something. And but I mean, there are a lot of things that piss people off about watches. The Seiko's non-alignment, windows not lining up, various watches having various issues because when you start talking about spending comical amounts of money, and when I say comical, once you go past a 1 month's rent, 1 month's rent, I would say one, in my mind, anything over 1 month's rent is a luxury product because that means you're giving up a month of living. Human beings are the only species that pays rent. Do birds pay rent? Apes, earthworms, orangutans? Humans are the only species that pays rent on this planet. So if you're paying more than 1 month's rent on anything, handbag, shoes, and whatever your rent is, because it's all relative, right? So in my case, I live below my means because I'm a journalist. I can't afford this stuff. If I mean, I the only reason I can afford what I do in my hobby is because I live below my means. It's like a car guy. I used to be a car guy. So you sacrifice so you could, you know, pray to the muse and have fun with your life. I used to buy beat up 924s and 944s. In my life, I've literally owned two 924s and three 944s. So that series, and I have a book on the series somewhere back there. Because I grew up in New York City, Queens. My father had a garage in Brooklyn, gas station, Sunoco. And I was a mechanic. So I would spend, that's why I only became a big time collector when I finally stopped spending money on cars. But I digress from the topic and let's look at the comments. Okay, wait a second. Hi, Alex, Johnny Arsenal. Um, Chinese chronographs are hard to beat for the price. You're exactly right. No, I like some of the higher end pieces. Oh, that right. We were just talking about that with the Skylar. Nice to see you, Skylar. Greetings and long life. It's nice to finally catch you live. I have been catching up on your past lives. Thank you, my friend. Great work. I appreciate that. I approach with evergreen life topics. Well, everybody has to try to find a niche within an industry, right? And my day job, I'm uh, actually a reasonably respected technology editor in the embedded engineering space. I'm the editor in chief of the IEEE's Power Electronics magazine, and I'm editor at large for electronic design and microwaves and RF. I I'm a very happy man in my day job, and I'm a very happy man in my hobby. My joke is I'm digital in the daytime, and I'm well. This is electromechanical, analog at night. But no, I love what I do, and I'm a very lucky man because I came here originally. I live in Germany, mostly because I came here in '81 as an electronic warfare Russian radio traffic analyst. And I've stayed in tech all this time. As I'm, like I said, I do this for a living today. And this is a hobby, which is what I love about this, because I'm just here sitting in front of the camera because otherwise I would be sitting in a bar and people would be like, stay away from me. Whereas since I have a channel, only the people who really care about watches come watch, and then we can have a conversation. And that's what I love about this channel is it gives us an opportunity because we have a lot of really good participants. I mean, I've been doing this for a few years now, and we've built up like a really nice group. It's only a couple of dozen people, but once upon a time, you'd go to a city, put up placards everywhere for your speech, and rent a conference room. And if you're lucky, 5 or 10 people would show up. And because of the web, everybody who's interested in what we have to say can show up. So I appreciate you. I really do. So, elusive man, for me, what bugs me about a watch is a cheap bracelet. I tend to gravitate towards seamless butterfly style bracelets. I love a watch with a seamless bracelet. I don't like clasps. Well, you know what the funny thing is, elusive man, my friend. You know, once upon a time in the mid '80s, I was the sales manager for Monster Cable for the American military market, selling really aggressive speaker wire and interconnect cables, RCA cables to people. And the thing is that the reason they were successful back in the day, because it's all digital now, and as long as the bits get through, it's not really about the cable. Where back in the day, it really did matter with analog because it was about the waveform and all. And I used to sell a lot of cable with RCA cables, not necessarily its speaker cables, and sometimes yes, because it carries on once they get the logic. But if you bought, say, for example, a Nakamichi, if anybody who doesn't know Nakamichi, Nakami, whatever the Nakamichi, look it up. They used to make the cassette decks. If you bought a Nakamichi cassette deck, everybody would genuflect just you walking down the aisle if you were an audiophile. And there would be a piece of cable. There would be some RCA cable in that box, but they didn't expect you to use it. That was a convenience. It's like nowadays it's different, but in the old timey days, if you bought a car, you would put different tires on that car. They did not give you good tires. They still don't give you good tires. And any real car enthusiast That's the first thing they're going to do is they're going to swap out the tires. People that don't think it through swap out the rims first, but tires first. The rims are just for looks. The tires are how it interacts with the road. And it goes directly to the bracelets. So I can understand what you're saying about the bracelets. But wouldn't you rather they put the money in the watch? I when you're at the highest end, you're paying for the bracelet. But for and they Seagull even gave me a leather strap with this NATO. Actually, it's really now a Zulu because I always cut off the keeper because I don't like the double thickness under my wrist. But you know me and straps. Didn't you see I encourage any one of you who is even remotely into straps. I just did a beautiful interview that I posted about a guy with like exotic leather straps, frog, python, manta ray. You got to, I mean, straps. I recognize what you're saying, but if the strap isn't up to par, hopefully then they put the money in the watch. Maybe they didn't. I'm not going to apologize for them. Uh, but yeah, but Skylar, to your point, I want to talk about things that nobody else talks about. Everybody talks about Rolex in the marketplace. Everybody talks about my top 10 watches. I want to talk about why do we collect? What do you like in watches? What don't you like in watches? I'm just a collector. I'm not some arbiter or magic, douche nozzle standing on high saying you must hate Patek now because they were stupid with naming their new watch and marketing it because they didn't have to say it was like awesome and the best thing since sliced bread. They could have just simply said it was a square Nautilus, as I said, Nautilus squared. And but it's more to do with the people who are looking for flaws. And one of the things that everybody knows who's ever watched this channel for any length of time, well, you can have your thoughts. You can say, I hate that watch. But that doesn't mean that I have to hate that watch or they have to hate that watch. If you hate that watch, you're perfectly welcome to hate that watch. And if you argue with us long enough, maybe we will dislike it or even come to hate it if you have a good argument. But if you don't and you still don't like it, we're not going to say you're an idiot for not liking it. Well, a mature collector wouldn't say that you're an idiot. A mature collector would say, obviously, you have your tastes. And that's the thing, what I've always trying to say in this channel is it's all about respecting each other's tastes. Whoever's wearing that watch took the trouble to pick it out, took the trouble to put it on their wrist. They're wearing it in public, and you're going to mock them in an environment where nobody wears watches or cares. When I used to own a Volkswagen Beetle back in the 80s in Germany, we would always wave to the Volkswagen driver on the Beetle. Every time two Beetles would pass, the owners would wave at each other because we recognize it's a fraternity, sorority. Unfortunately, we have these gender oriented, but I mean everybody, because if I say fraternity, I'm not excluding women, or sorority, I'm not excluding men. Community, community. Volkswagens were a community. Watches are a community. Watches are a community. Don't denigrate your fellow community participants. You should be happy that they are a participant. Going to be all by yourself in this crazy world? Community is always good. And then it helps you do things like complain about watches you don't like or measures you don't like. Or let's look at it positively. For example, there are things that I'm really liking. This came with quick replace. The leather strap was a quick replace strap. If a $300 watch can do a quick replace strap, why can't Patek? You know, We are in this adventure together. Let's remind ourselves that we are. HRM, apparent still over 10,000 US military in Germany. Oh, no, no, no. There are still a lot. But in the old timey days in the 80s, because I got out of the military and I worked for 10 years selling to the PX system here in Germany during the 80s. I've been to every base from Bremerhaven to Aviano. Um, and back then, there were over 2 million Americans. And now there are maybe 200,000, which is still a lot of people, but it ain't 2 million. I, pardon me. I got a plaque on the wall from Desert Shield, Desert Storm. Elusive Man. I love my Zulu Time Longines, but the clasp is so ugly. I wish I had a butterfly. Buy a leather strap. Buy an aftermarket strap. Contact my friend. He wasn't my friend when I met him, but he's my friend now. I'm gonna go extra and visit him. The guy, Santipi. I got his card over here somewhere. I should have had it ready. The guy doing the exotic straps. Buy an ostrich leg skin strap. Strap ain't the watch. I recognize there are a lot of some watches are the strap. I recognize that. But if you have a standard watch, right? Like for example, boom, this is my Zenith El Primero Chronomaster open heart, right? This isn't a factory alligator, but isn't it beautiful? It works so well with this watch. This ain't the factory. And I didn't even bother putting the factory buckle. The factory strap's in the box with the paper. So when my kids get, because I'm not selling this, but when my kids get it, when I keel over, they can get all the money they want for this piece. But no, this strap, I matched it to this watch. You don't have to wear the strap that came with the watch. I'm too lazy to go get the Lunar Pilot, but I put a silicon strap black on it and took the leather off of it. I think of others like I put a this is a $20 rubber strap on a Cartier Santos XL, but it dresses it down so I can wear it anywhere because people just from a distance think it's just another chunky sports watch. I recognize your concern, but then think about is the strap cheap because they're cheap, or is the strap cheap because they put the money in the watch? Elusive Man. In fact, my older DJ Two Tone Date Chest has an oyster bracelet with the Rolex Cheap 70. They will stamp sheet metal. 80s class. But I searched and researched everywhere to see if you could get the Super Jubilee on it, but no luck. Elusive Man, then don't get one from Rolex. There are companies that do make really nice aftermarket straps and bracelets for that piece. Trust me. Just don't expect it from Rolex. But that's okay. Keep the original and then it keeps its value and just wear the strap that looks good on it. Who cares? Literally nobody cares. And if you keep the original piece in the box, then nobody can criticize because if you wanted to sell it, boom, you have all the original pieces. Hey, Oscar, good evening. Trap Vision, hey, hey. Skylar, what I find to be a little annoying sometimes is when the bracelet is the butterfly clasp but no half link. Well, that's what I was saying before. Luckily, they do give you half links with the TISO PRX, but like uh this don't have any half links and it's vintage, so I'm never gonna get half links for this. But luckily it has a really good micro adjust spectrum, so I just luck out they didn't take any links. Well, actually, I actually even think I have an extra link for it because I remembered I did take off a link to size it. So I even have an extra link for this. But if you have a vintage piece and you don't have extra links, that will actually restrict your resale value. But if you have extra links in a vintage piece, it makes it easier. Or my go-to Milanese. This is my. By the way, this is also for sale. I only went 1,500 for it. This is my Omega alarm watch. It has a straight edge, semi-shielded lug, and I put just an off-the-shelf $60 Milanese on it. It looks nice. Uh, Or I could put a blue calf or something like that on it, but I no, the Milanese does work on it. And Milanese is my go-to bracelet if I want to put a metal bracelet on something and I don't have the factory bracelet. Although I'm very lucky. Well, I shouldn't say lucky. Some watches are so popular that you can get uh, good simulacra because it's not a fake because it doesn't have the logo on it. But I got this on the leather, but I was able to pick up a pilot bracelet, pilot esque, pilot esque. The pilot bracelet is a registered trademark of the IWC Corporation. Um, but I was able to pick up a pilot esque bracelet. It doesn't fit perfectly because when if it's at the wrong angle, there's a slight air gap. But it actually does also. You remove the links by pushing the spring, and it's actually works exactly like, including the micro adjust. It just doesn't have IWC written on it. So you look around, you might be able to find a good strap that would work. Okay. I'm not going to say perfect. I actually have sold watches because I couldn't get the right strap. Like, one of the major reasons I sold my Globemaster annual calendar, which is arguably one of the greatest watches ever made. And some other pieces I've had issues with just because I can't find the right strap. My JLC, I sold my JLC Polaris. I wound up buying the factory rubber, but the factory metal strap cost 2,200 euros for a strap, and it doesn't tell time. So, Trap Vision, yes, Skylar. Oh, yes, the bracelet. HRM. Odd proportions can completely ruin a watch. Think extreme thickness, long lugs, or long male end links. Well, Nomos is notorious for comically long end links. But if, if, where did it disappear to? Here it is. If you keep the factory bracelet on, it works because these end links are, yeah, like clown shoe long. Really, these are and if you look at some of like the club series, they have comically long end links, but I guess they thought it was this. I Anybody at Nomos, no one's going to think badly of you if you shorten your links, end links. I mean your lugs. Please offer short lugs versions. They offer. Think When you think about it, Nomos offers watches in multiple sizes. Why not in multiple lug lengths? Why not? Not like it's hard. You could theoretically take a Nomos to a jeweler, have them saw off a piece of the link, and drill a new hole. It's not hard. But obviously, Nomos is doing it for some. I mean, if you think about it, it does look nice. And by offering it in different sizes, it's not like you got to have this thing where the lugs are sticking over your arm. But yeah, they could. But it's all about shopping and style and such. There are companies who make watches of this nature, like Glashütte Original that have shorter lugs. I mean, everybody looks at the CQ as a sub alternate, and the CQ costs at retail 12. The Rolex costs 10 at retail, but get it at retail. If you're buying a gray market, you're starting at 12. Buy a CQ. I must admit, I bought a Rolex because um, it's gone. Oh, where did I put it? It's around here somewhere. Not in my hand. Oh, now I got to tear the house apart. Um, but the Glashütte CQ is a great piece. There are so many nice watches out there in the world. That's part of the beauty of being a collector is researching and finding. And so that's part of what we were, the theme of the show is talking about what, because what you don't like in a watch is as much of a indicator as what you like in a watch, right? Like I said, we were just saying, long lugs. You see this beautiful Nomos Campus, beautiful piece, great value. Lugs are long. Boom, you're no longer going to buy that watch. You're going to buy something else. Captain Spaulding, hey, how's it going? Wistful Ignorance, hey, how's it going? Oscar, Skyler, OMG, the infamous Skyler Santana, yes. It's always nice to be, it's like going into a bar and have people going, hey, nice to see you. Because I occasionally attend other bloggers' channels, like I often wind up over at Watch Art Sci, Bill Sanders, and some other the bloggers, and I enjoy the conversations. Archie Luxury, you know, um, and it's a community. That's the beautiful thing about this thing, and that people recognize you, like Ristful. Oscar saw that guy is doing that and looks awesome. Hey, Tap, HRM Swatch would probably charge over 750 for a metal case moon swatch, and a lot of people would pay for it because a lot. I've gotten some pushback on the term price point, but $1,000 is a price point, give or take. There are people who are willing to spend that money, and if you think about right, I mean, a used Speedy, and I have the metal bracelet, is five, give or take, used. Why not 750 for a metal case? I would go the irony route. Don't make it, oops. I would go the irony route and don't make it, a straight up and down speedy liar lug case or something. Or maybe, but I would do something, I would bead blast it, like make it a matte metal case, do something to distinguish it. But I could easily, they should do a metal case swatch under the irony, make it like a bead blasted gray. Then anybody looking at it would know it's not a Speedy, but it's a metal case. Well, it would be a Speedy, it would be a Swatch Speedy, but it wouldn't be the Speedy. So yeah, I would say do a metal cased moon swatch, but with bead blasted, you know, gunmetal case. Trap Vision look professional. Ooh, Skylar and Trap Vision inserting each other's and Wristful too. Like, see, that's the thing. It's a community. Everybody. It's nice that people recognize each other on our channel. It really is. It makes my heart warm. People who care about watches all participating. Oscar turns really nice. Trap Vision. Oh wow, the horological YouTube crew is here. Exactly, Spalding, Oscar, all kinds of cool people. It because well, like I said, my goal is to have a channel where we just talk about why we like. I'm not going to try to. I mean, occasionally I might talk about the marketplace, but like today, what bugs you with a watch? Let us talk. Let's talk about watch collecting. Let's not just snipe at who has more money or better taste, or it doesn't matter. Wear what you like. But what don't you like? Me, like I said, in my case, I literally I loved my Mont Blanc Geosphere. I still own. I mentioned it earlier. I still own a Mont Blanc. I've got a Nicholas Rusek, which is an awesome watch. It really is. I will never sell this piece. But I did sell my Geosphere because it didn't have a running indicator, didn't have a second hand, like the Graham chronos. They don't have a running second hand, but they have a little window in the back so you can see the balance wheel. You can see it's running. Because if you have what is sold as a travel watch and you don't know if it's running, what are you going to die in the middle of the desert? I thought it was working. Arr, arr, arr. You need a running indicator. As I was pointing out, even my pornographic table watch has got a running indicator. The angels, you know what, waggles back and forth. You need a running indicator in a travel watch. And that's why I sold my Mont Blanc Geosphere, even though it is a gorgeous watch. It really is a gorgeous watch. I was almost ready to go to a watchmaker and get a transparent back just so I could then see the balance wheel. So I knew it was running. But how do you have a travel watch that you don't know if it's running or not? Mont Blanc people. Okay. Did Prada does make watches, but I can they got some nice pieces because they commission well, but they're more of a fashion watch company, but they're a they do have a couple of nice pieces. Wow, got some good comments. I gotta and just a heads up, I'm gonna after I finish reading all these, we're gonna close out. Wow, I gotta scroll up. We got a bunch. CEK, nice to see you. Okay, finally got back to the top of the comments. I mean, I am humbled that everybody is commenting. I really am. So I'm going to keep going until everybody's comment is read. So, Trap Shirt Game is on one. Thoughts on Haraj? Tap. I have quite a few videos on Haraj. They have some very they are technologically advanced, but they're still mechanical. And they're not even doing things like silicon hairsprings. They've got, for example, a very inexpensive tourbillon. I have a video from the Dusseldorf Watch Fair just a couple of months ago where I got a chance to interview them and talk about because they've developed technology that allows you to regulate a watch without opening it up that doesn't violate being mechanical. You got to look at that video. Horaj, top of the chart. So, Blissful Ignorance, Sweet Dial. Thank you, my friend. Well, you know, the interesting thing about this piece is I used to own this exact same model, blue face, two tone, and I sold it and I regretted it. And I just kept looking and kept looking and kept looking. And this one was serviced 2 years ago. So that's why it's in such good shape. And I only paid 4,800 for it because I went to Cologne and I met the person and I gave them cash, which saves quite a bit if you save people trouble. Nomos looks nice. Yeah, see, humongous lugs, but as long as you leave the factory bracelet on it, uh, the Tangenta is also a nice piece. Good evening. Hey, CEK. Watch. Hey, my friend. That guy destroys the plastic case. Yeah, he does. Uh, Tap. Or Raj uses some strange business practices. Okay, I honestly don't know anything about their business practices. I've only been looking at their watches. Hopefully, they're not doing shenanigans. Let's hope. Trap. Horological. Oh, please. I'm not a G. I'm just passionate. Yes, I'm passionate. But why have a hobby if you're not passionate about it? Oh, I love it. Everybody's talking smack daddy. And I'm going to bail after I finish reading this list of questions. I apologize for not being able to stay longer. HRM, different than the watch raffles. Yeah, there's all kinds of weird stuff. Wristful ignorance. Any cyclops makes my skin crawl. Yeah, but sometimes it becomes like it's like people saying about the helium escape valve on a Seamaster. They do it so you can tell it's not a Rolex. But I mean, Rolex has made this. I mean, come on, be honest. The Cyclops isn't that bad on this. And I'm old. It helps to see the date, It not necessarily always useful. Like that's why the first sea dwellers didn't have the Cyclops. You can always have it pried off by a jeweler. Actually, I would have the crystal replaced and keep the original crystal and keep it in the box. So if you ever want to sell it, you're good. Just have a replacement crystal without a cyclops put on, and then keep the original crystal just in case. Skylar, same with me. I don't care for them as on top. This is not set correctly. Lose my mind. Johnny, a bad bezel on a diver that has excess play. Yes, I don't like that myself. Dr. Bob's Nightmare. Hey, I used to feel that way about Cyclops too, but then my eyes got old and I bought one. Exactly. As we get older, we start appreciating the Cyclops. Do not defend, not deny the power. Do not deny the power of the Cyclops. Trap, just a straight up old school, oh, absolute though, but straight up screwdriver. Trap Vision. Thank you. I had a heated debate about $1,000 for a watch being a luxury. Well, like I said, that's why I link it to rent because everybody has a different level of what they can afford for rent. So if I can afford 2,000 a month for rent and I buy a watch for 25, that's a luxury watch for me. If I'm living in a place that's 500 a month for rent and I buy a $600 watch, that's a luxury watch for me too. My opposition told me that I was being cheap and to get a real luxury watch. See, that's the thing. Everything is relative. Einstein said reality is relative per the perspective of the viewer. It works for everything: money, food, sex, watches. If you're paying $2,000 a month for rent and getting by, a $3,000 watch is a luxury. If you're paying 500 a month for rent and you're getting by, a $700 watch is a luxury. If it's more than you're used to spending, it's a luxury. If it's about what you're used to spending, it's practical. So if you could afford a Tudor, boom, tool watch. At that price, I'd buy a Fortis, frankly. For that money, for the money you're going to spend for that Tudor, I would buy like a Fortis Novanaut or something like that. Way more watch for the money. But like if you're talking about luxury watches, $5,000 is a good break point. That's roughly the average value of the watches in my collection. And that's a lot of watch. I mean, let's run through $5,000 watches used, right? Is NFL Primera Chronomaster, give or take $5,000 used. Omega Speedmaster, give or take $5,000 used. Mont Blanc, Nicholas Rusek GMT chronograph, give or take 5,000 used. Cartier Santos XL chronograph, give or take 5,000 used. Breitling Navitimer GMT, give or take 5,000 used. Go cheaper. Longines triple date moon phase, 3,000. Frederic Constant world timer, three. You could get so much watch for $5,000. You can get a comically huge amount of watch for $5,000. The key is the hunt, shop, you know, look for what you want. You're the only opinion that matters, yours. You're putting it on your wrist. You're wearing it. It's on your body. You're the one it should please. Nanad, wouldn't me as a Rolex owner like to see an open case back? Well, I literally went out and bought the aftermarket case back to my Rolex Oyster Quartz to show that it is a hybrid electromechanical movement. So this came, and I put the case back in the box, so I can always put it back on if I have to sell it. But I ain't ever selling this watch. It represents too much in both. It's a pretty piece. It's a great suit watch, and in the winter when you're wearing long sleeves, small watches work with long sleeves because they slide in and out nice. And it's winter time here in Germany, so and I got dressed up. I wear my shirt with a collar and all that, so I'm wearing my fancy watch because it's Sunday. But yeah, you can buy aftermarket display backs for the watch and just put the original back in the box, and then no value lost. And the newest Rolexes are starting to come out with display backs. They're starting to recognize because in my mind, you should a mechanical watch. They're leaning more and more and more towards display backs because they want to distinguish themselves from quartz pieces. So you look at, say, for example, I mean, that is actually a very pretty movement. Value 7753. More and more and more mechanical companies are recognizing they need to show the goods. Lift the skirt up a little, as they say, because mechanical watches are different. And the Swiss watch industry rescued themselves by going both upmarket and down market. Swatch plastic and everything upmarket as it is today. Uh, like I said, raffles. Yeah, don't know. Nod. Oh no, you asked that already. I read that already. Dr. Bob's. Wow, my friend Len sold those monster cables too. Hey, he still swears by them. Well, because the funny thing about monster cable was um, they were good cables, and actually I was starting to talk about this. Thank you for bringing me back to the topic. So if you bought, say, for example, a Nakamichi cassette deck, they put cables in the box, but they didn't the money wasn't in those cables. The money was in the deck. The cables were a convenience, which is links back to we were talking about the straps and maybe not being the best straps. So Nakamichi, they gave you the cables as okay. Here's some cables, the RCA cables that were in the box. RCA cables are no longer used for anything because everything's digital now. RCA cables and was a analog technology. And so what I would have my people do is carry around the $50 monster cable, RCA cables, and say, hey, you just bought this $1,000 cassette deck. Let's take that into the big room and we'll hook it up with your cables and with my cables. And the cables in the box were garbage. The cassette deck wasn't garbage. The cables were just a courtesy. And the monster cables, the decent, not the high end expensive, but the decent mainstream $50, which if you think about it, $50 is a lot of money for just interconnect cable, but for $1,000 cassette deck, not a lot. And so they would hook up the $50 interconnect, and they have the switches in the big room with the speakers, so you can actually do an A/B comparison. And the oldest axiom in sales is everyone can tell the difference between crap and good. Not everyone can tell the difference between good and great. So the cables in the box were crap, and the cables you compared them to were good, and they could hear that difference. And then you said, well, then that's why you need the $100 cables, and that's goes farther along. But there is a difference between crap and good, and good cables will make your stereo sound better. You don't necessarily need the $1,000 cables, but yeah, at least, well, nowadays, like I said, it's digital. As long as the bit stream gets through, the sound gets through. But actually, even today, if you think about the whole digital analog, the last step is the power amplifier. And that's the interesting thing, because I used to be a friend of Noah Lee, the founder of Monster Cable. He's still alive, but not in good health. So yeah, thought to Noel, and he got rich selling. He used to be a drummer that did record rack jobbing, kind of like Richard Branson. Also became a millionaire, but not as rich as Richard. And he used to like big speaker wire, and people started asking him to buy it. And Monster just literally started by buying bulk, thick wire, cutting it to size, and rebranding it. Eventually, they developed their own technologies. And I was involved. I remember boxing pins, speaker wire pins, gold plated speaker pins. I remember doing that back in the mid 80s. Um, but there was some science behind it. And the basic science was a big conductor is going to conduct better. And beyond that, it starts getting into the fuzzy area of marketing. But just like escapements, just like watches, there's a level where there's good and there's great and there's perceivably good and great. And then we're pursuing the art. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love pursuing the art. Unfortunately, some people gild the lily and they're calling that pursuit of the art, and they're not the same. Trap, as Skylar says, trap. That's insane for them to say and sounds like a snobbish position. I never like snob. Never be a snob with watches because that person took the time. They care about that. Don't denigrate their position. Just say it's not my taste. And it's the same for them to say and sounds like a snobbish position to take. Technically speaking, in my own opinion, a $20 watch is luxury outside of your needs to survive. Exactly. It's all relative. And frankly, in a world with phones and ubiquitous time, you don't need a watch to begin with. So just in one sense, just wearing a watch is a luxury. Like we were talking about Mont Blanc. I mean, I got a whole Mont Blanc pen stencil set. I love my Mont Blanc pens. Oh my God, I love them really a lot. And they really are well made. I mean, if you think about the amount of effort that, that's why that's why I always trusted my Mont Blanc watches. Like I said, the reason I sold my Geosphere is because it didn't have a running indicator. And I love my Nicholas Rusek. The machining and the technology needed to make a good fountain pen, you also have to be a very good mechanical engineer, you know? And that's the thing about snobbery. Well, also, I was going to start the show by wearing my Google Glass. My Google Glass with the cable. I got the headphone even. Here, it's in here somewhere. There we go. Got my Google Glass. No, no, no. But another victim of market forces. Google Glass was too early and too expensive. The market resisted because it was something everybody wanted, but nobody could afford. I mean, I bought it and I wrote it off of my taxes because I'm a journalist. writing about it. But the average person can't do that. And the backlash against glass, in my opinion, was because the average person recognized it was a force multiplier they couldn't afford, which only would further distance the haves from the have-nots. And now you can buy the Ray-Bans for what? A couple $100 and a few hundred. Less than 500, I think now, which brings it into the realm of affordable. And so some of the things about what we don't like and what we do like is also based on means. And that's a different discussion. And that's why I like talking about watches, because I try to skirt the politics and religion and all. Watches are all about horology and style and a bit of marketing. Well, we're almost at the top of the hour. Let's see if we can get through the rest of these comments. Bada boom. Consider Dr. Bob's nightmare. I consider any Seiko approaching 3K. Any Seiko approaching 3K a luxury, stealth luxury. Well, they do. Grand Seiko, if you lived in London and you wanted to wear a nice watch and you didn't want someone to cut off your arm, wear Grand Seiko. The thieves are all robbing Rolexes. They're not robbing Grand Seiko. And the Grand Seikos are arguably better watches in the first place. Johnny, natural exotic leather straps are extremely beautiful. So you should check out the video that I did. Sartipi, that's the name of the guy. I have a video from the Dusseldorf Watch Show of this guy, and he's got python and he even had frog. I didn't even know you could make frog leather, and he had frog leather. And it wasn't bad looking either. You should check out the video. Trap Vision. Skylar, I was blown away by the conversation. Spent 220 on an Islander, and that was a luxury for me. Well, Long Island watches, I have a comical amount of respect for that guy. He has helped. Well, him and Jody at Just One More Watch with Erebus, these micro brands that are providing real value to people, nothing but respect. Dr. Bob's Nightmare, 62 VW lowered, boom, California style with a surfboard rack. My first car was two Volkswagen Beetles. One was 1972 and one's like a 69 or something. And I was a soldier in Germany, and my friend sold it to me because he was rotating back to the United States, and he had one for parts, which if you owned an old Beetle made absolute sense. I did a lot of part swapping on those vehicles, and then I sold. Well, actually, I donated one to the strip lot, but I did sell the other one. Although the clutch went out, and the old Beetles had synchronized transmission. So what you would do is, if your clutch was blown in an old Beetle, you would go to neutral, drift into the stoplight, and then when the light changed, you'd get out and you'd push it until it started moving, and then you jump back in, and then it would shift into first as long as it was moving. And I drove that Beetle like 2 weeks like that. Great. But see, that was a well-made vehicle that had a synchronized transmission that worked that well. That's the gloomy side of history, because it was designed by one of Hitler's greatest tank engineers, Ferdinand Porsche. And the 911 is just simply a Volkswagen Beetle stretched out and sported up. HRM, if I'm interested in an interesting topic, look into the Jacquet affair. Jacquet Dreux, huge deal in the 2000, involved robberies, shootings, stolen gold, and fake Rolexes. So I'm guessing not Jacquet Dreux, just Jacquet. I'm going to look that up, HRM. I'll write it down later. But now I'll look that up. Would be a great topic for a show. Johnny, stingray and sharkskin leather straps are extremely beautiful. They are, and very rugged. Some tough ass skin. Oscar, smart way to think. The watch is the mechanism, not the strap. Exactly. Hey, Peter, how's it going, my friend? Little late to the party, just joined in. For me, small crown on a manual watch. Well, exactly. How you gonna get? How you gonna get any kind of torsion on a little teeny head on it? You gotta have a grippy crown on a watch that you're gonna wind. Gotcha there, Johnny. Hey, Peter. Recently had an ETA 7753, which I had an onion crown fitted. Never been so happy. Well, the funny thing is, both of these watches are ETA 7753s. This 5,000 used and this 1,500 used have the exact same movement. This one's slightly better decorated, but you can tell because they both have the hidden pusher for the date change and the horizontal totalizer layout. So you can tell they're Value 7753s, and it just shows you how much branding and fit and finish matter. HRM. Apparently, the term NATO strap is also copyrighted. Ooh, really? Bark and Jack got hit with a lawsuit. Yes, I heard about that. My heart goes out to Adrian, I believe his name is. But yeah, my heart goes out to him. I own a couple of their straps. Uh, I I don't think it's if it's copyrighted by a private firm. That's weird because NATO is a international organization. Wow, bad news. Sorry to hear that. Trap Vision just got a glycine. Glycine is an underappreciated company, and now that they're owned by, oh, I'm blanking because I'm ashamed to think of their name. No, I'm joking. But yeah, Glycine just got bought by somebody who's not very well respected, and I'm blanking, and it'll come to me as I'm talking. So all of a sudden, I'll blurt out some watch company's name, and that's who I am talking about. But Glycine, they were the first real GMTs because during the Vietnam War, a lot of military pilots used Glycine GMTs before Rolex had the that Pan Am. Well, Rolex, we need something douchebaggy for our pilots. Pan Am could have bought Glycine, GMTs, which existed before the Rolex GMT Master. Oh well, but Glycine is awesome. I got a Glycine Combat sub, and the bracelet is disappointing. Let's see, I just talked up Glycine, and now it's disappointing. Yeah, get a different strap. However, I literally just ordered FKM rubber for it. See, boom! Then you get a nice rubber strap. It's gonna look tight. Um, I'm a big NATO fan, but I'm realizing rubber works better because rubber is chunkier and it fills the optical space more. So rubber for an expensive watch is almost a better choice just because people's eyes expect to see something beefy on something that expensive. Bill Sanders, I do like Watch Art Side. I do like him. I initially had a little irk with him over silicon hairsprings, but then after he clarified his position, I recognized where he's coming from. And I've participated. He hasn't participated in any of my live streams, but I participated in a couple of his. Hey, JDF Omega. Thank you, my friend. Dr. Bob's Nightmare. Nomos should offer their watches in a larger variety of colors. They got a crapola colors. You can get them in all kinds of colors. Nomos colors. Come on. Now I know you mean even more colors. Rolex charges you extra money for colors. Nomos gives you colors for free. Dr. Bob's Nightmare. How much would I pay for a plastic moon swatch with a 321 movement? Oh, 1,500. with a real 321 movement, 1,500. Oscar, he knows about very expensive watches. A lot of people know about it. It's easy. Well, I shouldn't say it's easy, but all you got to do is research. All you got to do is research. The information's out there. Into vinyl also. Hell yes, I'm into vinyl. I used to be the sales manager for Monster Cable here. I used to sell Sumo Class A amplifiers. If you know anything about audio power amplification, Class A is like the peak because it's also comically inefficient. The most powerful Class A amplifier you can buy in the market today is probably about 65, 80 watts max. And this Yamaha behind me is rated for over 200 watts because Class A, they push the sine waveform above the bias. So the transistors are constantly working. And I can't get into it at this point. You either understand what I'm saying or I'm just gibberish. But if you ever want that, ask me and I will devote an entire episode non-watch, I'll call it non-watch stuff, and I'll explain how audio power amplifiers work. And I know it. I'm also the IEEE Power Electronics magazine editor in chief, so I'm literally a reference in embedded power electronics. But we're talking about watches here. Oyster Quartz is cool. Of course, Oyster Quartz is cool. It's awesome. It's fun. Oh, ghost positions. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Ghost positions are a pain, right? Ghost positions are a pain, but if these people are buying off the shelf movements, and if there's not a date, what are they going to do? Remachine the movement? So there's a ghost position for a date that doesn't exist. You get what you pay for, you know? King Seiko, the 56KS HRM, the 56 and the 52 King Seiko also had a way to regulate the movement without having to open the case. They had an external regulating screw, physical contact. But I get your point. And actually, Urvec, Urvec has a watch that does it like that too. They had an external regulating screw between the lugs. Exactly. But the Haraj has no contact. It's not electronic motor. They literally are like putting micro vibrations that turn this resonance motor. It's just it's actually a very elegant. It really is an elegant solution. It really is an elegant solution. Oh my God, it really is because the the acoustic energy that they're giving into the case resonates within that little micromotor. And so the resonant energy also powers the motor and it doesn't just tell it where to go. It's just such an elegant solution. I mean, like comically elegant solution, like the Daniels coaxial escapement. Uh, Murtaugh, how's it going? I don't really like date windows in all watches. It's actually hard to find a watch without one and usually has a ghost position if it's a micro brand. Well, then you go up market or mid market. For example, I don't have it here. I got to reach up and I'm too lazy. Um, Speedmaster don't have a date. A lot of watches in this world don't have a date. You don't have to have a date. There'll I was going to say my Bulova Moon Pilot, Lunar Pilot doesn't have a date. There are watches. The if you want to go high end, the JLC Polaris, the base three-hander auto doesn't have a date. If you look, there are good watches out there without a date. There are. Um, but ghost positions you're going to find in the lower priced watches because they're not going to re-engineer the movement. They're just going to eliminate the date. HRM, the 3 to 5 thousand market is filled with so many amazing watches. Exactly. It is. It actually. I agree with you. It. I only own well, used, new more expensive, but used only my sub is like worth more than 10. Everything else I own is worth less. Still a lot of watches. But then again, I live alone. Oh, between girlfriends. Between girlfriends. Tap, thank you for the compliment. Um, salesman, driving and listening. Wishful ink for ignorance. Thank you. Hey, TGV. Good evening. To echo, I could not agree more. Always nice to see you, TGV. And I'm gonna be in New York next year. We got to do an episode. Skylar, a lot of fun. Thank you. Well, I'm holy crap, we're an hour and a half in. I didn't even think about it. But I promised I would finish all the comments. Uh, hello from New York. I grew up in Queens. My mother still lives there. I'm gonna be there. We should have a big party. That's what we should do. We'll work it out. We'll have a big party for watch people in Queens. I'll rent like a hall or something. Uh, I have an early 70s Bull of the Sea King. Ooh, nice. Well, that tiny crown's hard. Hey, Milad. Who's worse, IEEE or ASME? Ouch. I work for the IEEE now. That's true. Price range is more on the budget side. Okay, last comment, Murtaugh. I actually did find a Bull of the mic. Oh, Byalov using a Seiko NH38. There you go. And I like the hand heart removes the ghost position from their watches. So I'm up saving for a hand heart. Well, that's the thing. The companies that rework the movements are worth it and they cost more. Zinn, hand heart, they may be taking off the shelf movements, but they're at least making sure they work for you. On that note, we're hour and a half in, but I'm loving this conversation and I live for this. The one night a week where I just say, screw it, I'm going to just talk about watches. And I love you all. Thank you for letting me and have a great week and have a great evening.